Hey everyone, welcome. Baron here. This is going to be the 1 week update video for my League starter, the Pyroclast Mine Saboteur for Crucible League. But before we get into all the nitty gritty details, let's run a sample map. It's going to be a T16 Toxic Sewer, and we're going to be doing Bestiary, Blight, and we just got a random Cartography Scarab in there too, and we're doing Eater of Worlds because I need those currencies for my boots. More than I need the Exarch. So let's jump in. Oh, and Essence as well. Forgot to mention that part. Always have a safety portal in a corner nearby the pump. On the off chance that you die or crash, you want to be able to zone back in right on top of the pump. And the reason for that is, particularly if your computer or network connection aren't 100%, or if the Path of Exile servers are not doing great that day, what can happen is you can be stuck in limbo where you're loading and the monsters start doing stuff, but you're not able to move yet. When that happens, you want your body to be near the pump so that all of the immediate towers right around the pump are active. And so there's less of a chance of failing just because of a long load screen. I'm doing a pretty typical strategy here. It's the chilling towers will freeze and meteor towers drop burning ground. And I do a lot of the heavy lifting myself, as you can see. I would never want to rely solely on towers. I think your build needs to be able to do some of the stuff. Like, sure, by the end of the encounter, especially in a full blighted map, the towers can take over. But I am a nervous sort, and so I supplement the towers for a while longer than I probably need to. I will draw your attention to how tanky this is feeling right now. You're probably picking up on that, but just wanted to throw that out there. And we'll go into all the details about how and why it is tanky, and I'm pretty proud of it, actually. I've been getting poor luck in the last 10 maps or so, and blighted maps, on golden oils and silver oils, but I've been getting good luck on rolling the 50-50 when I use an oil extractor on a ring that has one golden oil as a component. I've been way more than my fair share. I've been hitting the golden oil, which is nice. It was a hard habit to break. In Harvest, lastly, you would take yellow without question every time. You wouldn't even have to think about it. But because the infinite sextant strategy has been killed, using the enchantment, which says sextants only consume modifiers half the time, people aren't using it anymore, and with good reason. It wouldn't be worth it unless you're using the best of the best compasses, and I don't even know if they're going to be doing it then. In any case, the moral of that story is yellow juice isn't in nearly as high a demand this league as it was last league, and so I'm trying to break my habit of just automatically picking the yellow. I'm actually picking the blue because I need it for some crafting stuff, and blue and purple are relatively equivalent in how much they're worth, so you can pretty much be flexible, and whichever plot seems to have more stuff. So like these are exactly equal. 1 blue and 6 gray, 1 blue and 6 gray, so it doesn't matter. But in the cases where one has more than the other, you can just pick the one that has more, because the prices of juice at the moment are very, very similar. Yellow is actually technically the lowest, but not by a lot. Harvest is not explicitly part of my strategy, but I didn't block it, and I do need the juice. So every time it pops up, I do hop in. Some of these combination essence beasts are so tanky. It is a drawback of the strategy. It's something that I'm very cognizant of. I knew that was a drawback when I committed to it, but these are just the mechanics that I wanted to run. So I put up with the fact that they have some anti-synergy. I'm sure from the monster's perspective it's not anti-synergy, but they both multiply the health and defenses, and so you can wind up in these crazy cases where it just takes forever. A 6-link, and it appears to be an uncorrupted 6-link. That's interesting. You don't see that every day. I will corrupt this one. Damn, I've had bad luck on that too. My essence corruptions have been straight ruining them. Like, you're supposed to get some good outcomes every once in a while. You know, get an essence of horror when you do the purple ones. Minions. Do I care about minions? Not so much, no. There we go. So yeah, I know that the bestiary and the essences together can make things pretty tanky. It probably adds another minute to my maps, unfortunately, but golden oils are selling very well right now, and obviously both Crate Chimerals and Finwheel Plagued Arachnids are selling bonkers well right now. Which reminds me, I've got at least one in my stash, and like, I don't know, these people who sell in bulk on TFT, I don't know if they're multi-boxing or working with a party or what, but like, I have never had enough Finwheel Plagued Arachnids to sell in bulk, or Crate Chimerals. Like, at any given time, if I farm for a full day, I might get like a couple. Ooh, some Greater Ichors. That is what we're looking for, boys. Yes. Oh, let's see what this is about. Nope. But yes, that is good. That ring has a good fracture. Crystallized Omniscience is not as popular as it once was, but that ring is going to be very, very good. Maybe I'll craft it myself. I have the essences, right? Try for just triple attribute. And looks like we've just got one more corner to handle here. We already got the blight down, so this should be wrapping up quick. Oh, I thought those were going to connect. They do not. So we'll have to come down here. Do I want to fight the Metamorph? Yeah, it'll just take an extra second. I've got to take off my 1 Chaos dump tab. That's not doing me any good anymore. That went well. So let's pop back to town. I won't bother clearing out my inventory. I'll just go through, how are we doing? how's the build been? What have we been doing to it? So, as you know, we started as a Saboteur, Pyroclast Mine. We are still doing that. I started out with a Tremor Rod, and I intended to stick with that for a long time, and it just didn't work out that way. There were just too many benefits to not using a Tremor Rod and to putting the 6 link into the chest instead. So one of the benefits is Tremor Rod. You're not dropping that 6 link. You're either buying it from somebody else or you're 6 linking it yourself. And since nobody was selling 6 link Tremor Rods on the first few days of the league, that's very expensive. Multiple divines to 6 link that yourself, and then you have a body armor which you can get relatively cheaply. So that was strike one. Strike two, and was that I really wanted the modifiers on the shield. I was really missing the life, the resist, the evasion, the energy shield. You're giving all that up, and I just didn't feel that the Tremor Rod was giving me enough in return. And then, of course, this league, there are skill trees, and I wanted skill trees on my gear, and it was very difficult to get one on a unique weapon in the first few days of the league. Last but not least, and this is kind of like, it was a side note at the time, but it's become one of the main reasons I've stuck with this. Shield charge. You cannot shield charge if you don't have a shield, and it just makes things a lot smoother and more comfortable. This is not a super high movement speed build, so being able to shield charge around is really nice. So in terms of our links, I actually think that I'm going to relink this. So we're doing Pyroclast Mine with Charged Mine support, really strong. Minefield support, Trap and Mine damage, Inspiration, and Empower. The Empower I just got because I rolled 2 reds, and I had already been rolling for a while, and I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm not going to try and roll for 4 blues. 4 blues, 1 red, 1 green would be ideal, because I would like to take out this Empower and put in a crit damage support instead. Like, just POB says the math works out that's better. Now, as for what they're socketed in, the Kintsugi, I'm going to save most of my talk about this for the defense portion. We're still kind of on the offense right now. I'll just, in the spirit of talking offense, I'll draw your attention to the fact that since Kintsugi is not a really meta armor right now, I was able to get a super cheap, I think it cost me like 20 or 30 C to get one with +2 socketed aura gems, and remember, mines have auras, so they benefit from +2 socketed aura gems. If you really wanted to go nuts, since nobody but a miner would care about this, you could probably find one for not too expensive that has +2 aura and +2 trap and mine. I should probably have an alert set up for that, because that would be nuts. But instead, I've got +2 socketed aura gems and 41% increased damage, which is not too shabby either. Let's take... we're still talking offense right here, so yeah, most of what we're going to talk about is defense, so I just want to make sure I get offense out of the way first. I do have this Arcanist brand setup that will cast Flammability and Frost Shield for me. It was previously also casting Sigil of Power, and I may go back to that at some point, because it does add a fair amount of damage and defense to have Sigil of Power too, but I really needed life tap. My mana is just a little too tight, especially when I got rid of the rare chest. Rare chest had a mana reservation efficiency roll on it. I essence rolled it, so obviously that is gone. And then this jewel is not currently in use. When I get a few more skill points, I may be able to go back to using it, but I really needed those points elsewhere for the time being. And we'll take a look at the tree in a second to show you what I mean. But if I had this jewel in, then I may have enough spare mana to take out life tap and put Sigil of Power in here. But it was really just inconsistent. The Frost Shield and the Sigil of Power were not going down consistently, because you reserve a bunch of mana with the mines, and so half the time when this would go off, it would catch me at a low mana moment, and it just wouldn't work. So that was no good. So okay, I think that's it for the gems and gear. Oh no, that's not true. I'll just really quickly show you the trees here. Evasion, fine. Evasion armor and energy shield, quite good. Chance to scorch enemies. I'm not blocking that often. I'm not scaling block in this build, but it's not uncommon for me to block a hit, 25%. It just has some anti-synergy with evasion, which we'll get into in a minute. But yeah, I could use a better tree than that, but it's good for now. Like, it's not doing nothing. And then the weapon is pretty bad. I just rolled a new one on this, and I really like this spell crit, which I'm going to pick up shortly. That's going to be my next thing. I only just re-rolled this. The end of this tree is very underwhelming. Withering Touch, I'm not doing chaos damage. Increased effective chill. This would be amazing for a self-chill build. That'd be outstanding, but it doesn't really affect me at all. And cast speed is negligible. So all I'm really getting from this is the spell crit chance. So I'm going to try and find some more wands that have that roll on it and try to do some combinations. But anyways, let's take a look at the actual full skill tree now. And we have reworked this a lot. It's looking probably a lot different from how it started out. And one of the bigger changes is that this whole section up here is gonzo. I worked with it for a while, but I ended up getting my mana and mana mastery down here. I took out this jewel and I picked up some cluster jewels up here. Big changes to the tree. In terms of offense on the tree, we're getting some crit, as well as, devastating devices. What I really would like to do with this section is get an impossible escape jewel that lets me do everything in the radius of Ghost Reaver without having it connected to my tree. Because this 1, 2, 3, these 3 points right here, plus the mastery, so that's not a good thing, but the 4 points total would be taken away. But then I could just allocate, boom, right here, Volatile Mines. Extra Mind is always good. And then Penetrate Elemental Resistance, always very good. And, I could take the mastery and I could put it over here, although ideally I do want to pick up the defensive mastery as well, the one in between the two that I've taken. Reduce damage dealt to enemies near it. That's a really potent defensive layer, and obviously I'm pretty tanky already, but I love being tanky, so it'll be tough to decide. Will this one go? Increased area of effect, or increased effective auras? I don't know. But these are my... this is kind of an offensive skill. It's relating to my my main spell, but it's not like direct damage. It's just, hey, maybe it'll get detonated an additional time. A little bit of damage. But this one is really strong, and I was dumb. I just, for whatever reason, I completely spaced out on this wheel, and I got focused on other stuff and forgot to take it until recently. So, don't forget this. A lot of crit chance, crit multi. This is huge for this build. But a lot of my offensive power is coming from the cluster jewel setup. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything down here. Yeah, frenzy charges. I'll mention those. So frenzy charges and power charges interact with the charged mine support gem that I'm using. So we get more than the usual benefit from taking these nodes. We get benefit from the gem as well. Getting some generic crit multi, life, resist attributes on a jewel. I think that's a very standard operating procedure. I'll get to the Forbidden Flesh and Flame in a second. Yes, I do have them, even though I'm not a rich guy. I picked some cheap ones, which we'll talk about in a bit. But where did I throw... Is it this guy? This one is really good, too. Crit multi, life, chaos res. I am chaos capped, by the way. But... where is my Corrupted Blood immunity jewel? Am I losing my mind? I'm pretty confident. Oh, is it this one? It's this one. My bad. I was just totally skipping over that. Yep, Corrupted Blood, that's important. And, you get a little... Actually, no. I'm no longer getting offense from this one. I gave that up in order to get the Corrupted Blood immunity. So, okay, let's talk Cluster Jewels. The Fire one is no surprises here. Cremator is amazing. I would have rather had Widespread Destruction at the back so that you don't have to path through it to get this. Like, I wouldn't have taken it. I would have rather taken those 2 points and put them into something else. But just this particular arrangement of 3 to have Smoking Remains and Cremator, the suffix, which in this case is Widespread Destruction, is just going to show up here. It's just the way that this trio of... In fact, I checked. There is no combination of Smoking Remains, Cremator, and any third notable that will put the third notable at the back. So, best I can do. You lose out on a point, basically, as a result of this. So then we've got this Cluster Jewel, this medium Trap in Mine, which is great. Trap damage, maximum life, we love that. Guerrilla Tactics is amazing. If I had room for more medium Cluster Jewels, I would get as many Guerrilla Tactics as I could, because it's a great node. But instead, you can see this is not a typical medium cluster. Over here, it is a Megalomaniac. And this, much like Kintsugi, is one of the benefits for doing an off-meta build, which is that there's nobody out there competing for the stuff that I want on this Megalomaniac. I had, I made my list of like, hey, here's 30 different passives, for the trade side, and said, find me a Megalomaniac that's got the one of those that I want, and like any other two. And I got one for, I think it was like a Divine, which is a stupid low price for what I got. So, Cremator, fire damage, awesome. Veteran Defender, which is just overall good stuff. It doesn't give any direct damage, but it's super helpful. It makes resistances and attributes way more flexible, and increased defenses from Equipped Shield. That is nothing to sneeze at, because the Equipped Shield is already giving us like a hefty amount of evasion and energy shield. So yeah, Veteran Defender there, but the real king here is Enduring Composure, and this, so I will use this as my transition from the offense to the defense, and there is plenty to talk about here with defense. Enduring Composure is a huge part of the defensive layers of this build, and they work really synergistically well together. So in terms of defense, we are going with Grace. Some Skitterbots does Chill and Shock, so there's some defense there. And then Defiance Banner. So a super endgame version of this build that's got like multiple small clusters and is wearing Ashes of the Stars. Oh, I forgot to mention the amulet. Yeah, so we are using Zelf's Heart, which I said I was going to do in the build guide. And it's been working great. It was very cheap. And, I paid more for the anointment than I did for the amulet. And it's great. And I really haven't felt the need to replace it with a +1, because I'd have to find another way to cover enemies in Ash. Yeah, you can use Infernal Cry. That's a little clunky. But yeah, this has been great. I've had no reason to want to replace the amulet's been great. Anyways, what I was saying there about Ashes of the Stars was you're not going to be able to cram in Determination until you have way more mono-res efficiency. I mean, look at this. I'm already down pretty low as it stands. So we rely a lot on Grace, which, as you know, has its limitations. So Grace, it's a trade-off with armor. So with armor, you mitigate physical damage, and only physical damage. And with evasion, you are not mitigating any damage. Occasionally, something will get through and hit you for full damage, but you can also you're avoiding elemental attacks as well, whereas armor does not mitigate elemental attacks. So a little bit of a trade-off there, but the big thing that we had to solve with pumping up evasion rating was, how do we mitigate the damage? Like, don't get me wrong, Ghost Dance is great, especially when you stack up your evasion rating and your energy shield this high. Like, you wind up recovering more than half of your massive energy shield bulb here when you take damage, but you would also like that hit to not have done a lot of damage in the first place, right? So what tools do we use to mitigate damage in place of armor? Immortal Call is one. And Immortal Call was one of the main reasons to add endurance charges. They work so well together because you're going to get hit. Two things are going to happen. Your Immortal Call is going to go off, so any hits that come in over the next couple seconds are not going to deal nearly as much damage, and we do have it attached to life tap and increased duration, so I think it'll last up to like 2 or 3 seconds, but during that time, because you got hit, Enduring Composure, which, by the way, keep in mind, Enduring Composure will also activate if you're hit by a spell damage, even though it does nothing to mitigate spells. What that means is you more consistently have up those 3 endurance charges. So those are mitigating physical damage. And then, of course, Immortal Call will have gone off, consumed the first 3, you're now getting a new 3 generating, and when Immortal Call consumed the first 3, it improves the effect of Immortal Call. So in the immediate wake of getting hit, as a result of the interaction between Endurance Charges and Immortal Call, you're actually at like your tankiest immediately after getting hit. Next up, and in that vein, is Kintsugi. So this plays with that very nicely as well. What it says is, if I've not taken a hit recently, so I'm just wandering up to a pack for the first time, 35% less damage taken, which is a massive, massive reduction in damage for that first hit. Now keep in mind, you're not going to get hit that often, at least not by attacks, but that first one is going to get through, and it's going to get massively shaved off by that. You lose the effect for 4 seconds, and so you're taking the normal amount of damage, although still mitigated by Immortal Call, Endurance Charges, but you get this other big benefit, increased evasion rating, 100% increased evasion rating if you have been hit recently. This makes our evasion rating so stupidly high. Like, let's see if POB will tell me real quick. If I put in the configuration, here, I'll bring this over so you can see. Hit recently, I'll make sure. So I've replaced my flasks since then. I'm just going to quick do an update here. So we have been hit recently. Okay, and that puts our evasion at 47,000. Little back of the envelope math here. You remember what Ghost Dance says. So you're going to recover energy shield equal to 3% of the evasion rating. Well, 47,700 times 0.03. You get hit, and you're recovering immediately 1,400 energy shield, which is ridiculous. So not only are you going up to basically evasion cap at that point, I'm going to get a Watcher's Eye with increased evasion on it so that I'm closer to evasion cap all the time, but you can get up to 95%. And keep in mind, the difference between 90 and 95%, like if you're doing okay at 90%, you're going to be doing amazing at 95%. Because one way of thinking about it is, sure, you're only adding 5%. The other way of thinking about it is, you were already doing okay at 90, and you're literally cutting in half the number of times you're going to get hit. Because you're going from 1 in 10 down to 1 in 20 times that you get hit. So that's nuts. And yeah, having this increased evasion rating from Kintsugi is a huge part of our survivability. Let's see, what else is big and good? Yes. Now, since we're talking evasion and energy shield, it would be a good time to draw your attention to my Forbidden Flesh and Flame, which I paid 10 chaos each for. I swear to God, 10 chaos each. And no, it does not have any offensive benefit. I could have easily taken any of the other Trickster nodes. Frenzy Charges would have been an offensive benefit. One Step Ahead would have been. Polymath would have been. I wanted this. I wanted to be tanky. My compliments to Puget. This build has always been in his honor. He never made this exact build, but this has always been in his spirit. And I wanted to be tanky. So 5 evasion rating per maximum energy shield on equipped helmet. So that means that we're getting a flat 1,500 evasion. So it's like having a Jade Flask active, basically, thanks to that. And then we're getting also, this is why the energy shield is so big here, 1 maximum energy shield per 6 evasion on equipped body armor. So there's 2,084 divided by 6. So you're getting 347 flat energy shield, which is going to be scaled by, the other thing. Oh, your intelligence will increase the percentage of energy shield you've got. So that's great. We are, of course, spell suppression capped. We are recovering energy shield when we do suppress spell damage. With this node, we are preventing an additional 3%, so we are preventing 53% of suppressed spell damage. Same principle, too, going from 90 to 95 evasion. It seems like such a small amount, going from 50 to 53, but the way you've got to think about it is, if the game is balanced around you suppressing 50% of damage, and you're doing like okay, you're not doing great, but you're not getting blasted in the face either at 50%, going to 53 is a big jump, in terms of game balance. So yeah, it's just such huge quality of life to have Forbidden Flesh and Flame with all that defense. It is occurring to me now that I skipped over an offensive thing. Astral Projector. So we'll just pop this in here. Astral Projector is quality of life, and it's DPS because it's putting the Nova from your Pyroclast mines up underneath the enemy, and it just works way better. It feels way smoother. You saw in the demonstration at the beginning. We are also using, this is a major piece of our defensive tech right now, for those times when inevitably your Ghost Shrouds run out. You've gotten hit maybe by a bunch of spells, so your evasion is not helping you, or maybe you got hit by just a few lucky big attacks, and you haven't had a chance to replenish your Ghost Shrouds yet, so your energy shield is gone. We're working with about 4,000 health, which isn't bad when you consider that we've got over 2,000 energy shield as well. But what are we doing with that 4,000 health? Well, I am using tech that I was very excited got moved from Pathfinder to the general public during this patch, and that is Flask tech. Specifically, this mastery, recover 4% of your life when you use a flask. So what have I done to enable this? First of all, I like the Careful Conservationist node as is. That's already good, but we would have had to take it anyways in order to get the mastery. I would have gladly paid for this node, even if it did nothing, in order to get this node. But by a happy coincidence, it does good things. Increased effect of flasks, and the other two effects make it easier to use them all the time. So in any combat scenario, we're clearly going to have full flask uptime. That's no longer the question. We're past whether we're going to have full flask uptime in combat, because the real question is, how often do the charges get back to full so that the flask uses itself and you get that 4% boost. Now, I don't know, you can scroll back and check what was going on in combat back in the demonstration portion of the video, but they are going off everything but the Bottle of Faith all the time, because you have this gain 3 charges when you're hit by an enemy. So those few hits that are getting through, the attacks that are getting through your evasion are suddenly doing you some good. And of course, all spells are going to count towards this as well. So you sit there and you tank all this damage, and I'm using the triple LE tech here. So I'm using Sapphire, Topaz, and Ruby. I do not rely on these to cap my elemental resistances. I have 75 without them. I use them primarily for the less damage taken effect, but it also means that I can comfortably take curse maps. I can take altars that lower my resistance and not have to worry. So these things are going off all the time, and I'm constantly getting this flutter of boom, 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 4%, 4%, 4% over and over again. And combined with the evasion and everything else, the suppression that we've talked about, it makes you super tanky. And then let's take a look at the suffixes. So obviously all of the prefixes are gain 3 charges when hit. I'm doing regen for even more recovery. Evasion, no surprises there. Crit chance, I would like that to be a higher tier, but I was prioritizing the 3 charges, and I rolled it myself, so maybe I'd buy one. And then last but not least, this is kind of a placeholder. I don't know what I want here. This is fine. Damage taken is leached as life. It's fine. I don't know what I want there, but that's just a placeholder for now. And then of course you're getting regen from the Bottle of Faith as well. So big defensive layer there. What are we missing? Those might be the big boys. I feel like I'm missing something. But yeah. Next up, I need ailment immunity. So just for chills and freezes, because I'm lazy and I'm not using Brine King, I'm using Lunaris because I like Lunaris better. To me, the ideal choice is between Lunaris and Solaris. I think there's good arguments to be made for each. I'm mostly using this as a mapper, so Lunaris is a better choice for that. But the big things that Solaris is giving you, no extra damage from crit strikes if you've taken a crit recently. That's huge, especially in rippy maps. And then reduced elemental damage taken if you haven't been hit recently. So that would be complementary with Kintsugi, whereas the Lunaris version, reduce elemental damage taken if you have been hit recently. This is on the opposite end of Kintsugi. So here you're getting 35% less if you've not been hit, but then once you do get hit, you get a much smaller but still existent reduction of elemental damage, at least. So yeah, our defensive layers are multitudinous, and I want to finish it off with freeze and chill immunity, plus other elemental ailment immunity if I ever wanted to do simulacrum, which I think could be fun. And so what I'm going to shoot for is, we've already got 30% on the Topaz Ring. The reason that I'm running Eater of Worlds is that I'm trying to replace that life regen on my boots with avoid ailments there. I am not going to use Storm Shroud. The fact that this gives me, just by itself, 30% chance to avoid elemental ailments means that I can successfully get generic ailment immunity elsewhere. The way it works is it's always easier to get higher numbers for a specific ailment than for general ailment immunity. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, if you could just get the same numbers for total ailment immunity, no one would ever go for shock immunity. You would always just go for total ailment immunity. Like, why would you do anything else? I can get total ailment immunity with similar investment to getting shock immunity. So I will get one as an implicit. I don't want to have to get one as an explicit, but if I did, I would have to get new boots, because there's no good way to target remove that useless 13 strength. Well, not useless, but it's not doing me as much good as ailment immunity would be. And the other possibility is I could get a different hypnotic eye jewel. I'm already getting a ton from this jewel that I needed. So life, lightning resist, and chaos resist was really big. But I think, do I have my lightning resist sorted out? Yeah, actually. So I could afford, at this point, to change this up and get one that's got life, chaos resist, and avoid ailments. And I don't know how much that's going to cost. Let's check really quick. And then that'll, I think, do it for the video. This is just the next upgrade that I'm looking for. So we will look for a Abyss Jewel that's got life. And I do want life, not strength. Chaos res, and avoid elemental ailments. This could easily be a divine or more jewel. Now, is it that they don't exist? Like, they're just, none are that good? Or is it that I've used the wrong modifier here? Let's take that out. Yeah, I think I've just used the wrong modifier. Huh. But I was pretty darn sure. Just gonna check Craft of Exile real quick. Look at jewels. Murderous Eye, fine. Oh, interesting. Avoid elemental ailments while elusive. Interesting. I must have been thinking of shock immunity, which you can get in high numbers on the Abyss Jewel. That is going to put additional pressure on getting that modifier on the boots. That is going to put some additional pressure on that. I am not seeing that you can get generic ailment immunity unless you have phasing, which, even if I had phasing, I'm not a raider, so I'm not going to 100% have it. And I don't like conditional defense, you know what I mean? You might say, all of my defense is conditional. Yeah, well, I set up so many layers of it that at least one of the conditions is always going to be met. You know what I mean? So, okay, yeah, that's going to take some more thought, but that's my next defensive upgrade. A combination offensive-defensive upgrade is when I get, let's see, is there any place that I can put another jewel? I may need to wait until I've got several more points and maybe reallocate some things, because I'm not really near any other unused jewel sockets. No. But what I'd like to do is get a Watcher's Eye, and like I guess theoretically it could replace this guy, I suppose. Like, yeah, because I'm okay on the lightning resist if I don't get into Abyssal Jewel. I might need to figure out the dexterity. That might lower my dexterity beyond where I can have it, because there's a high dexterity requirement for this armor, 170, but I think I might be able to barely squeak it by, so maybe I'll put the Watcher's Eye here, and the one that I've got my eye on is additional evasion rating while affected by grace to get up to that evasion cap, and then crit chance on consecrated ground while affected by zealotry, which zealotry is the offensive aura of choice right now. And I think that's it. I mean, as you saw from the demonstration, build's been going really, really well. I've been enjoying farming the blighted maps, bestiary. I did some logbooks earlier. It's just overall feeling great, and the tankiness has just started to click when I made these last few changes, like getting the flasks all in order, and it feels really, really good. There's still some things that can kill you. There's a couple of wonky essence things, like if you stand near one type of essence too long, you start taking reflected damage, and you've got to run away to break the link or something like that. So that killed me unexpectedly once. That was not great. And then I think Essences of Greed, on top of their corrupted blood, which they do that, I got immunity to that, they also, I think, have a generic fizz damage over time aura. Like, it's not a bleed, it's not corrupted blood, but it's just fizz damage over time. And that's annoying, because there's, like, no way to mitigate that. You know, I'm getting some fizz mitigation from endurance charges, but again, at that point, you just gotta step away. Pretty much everything else, I'm face tanking, which is great. I love face tanking. So that is it for the update. Let me know if you've got any questions. Pop them into the comments below, and I'm happy to answer. Requests for follow-up videos. Thanks for tuning in. Take it easy.